The pristine asphalt of Oak Ridge Estates didn't just whisper luxury, it screamed it. Here, the lawns were manicured to within a millimeter of their lives, and the silence was so thick you could almost hear the interest accruing on the neighbors' savings accounts. I didn't fit the Oak Ridge mold. I was 45, lived alone, and carried a collection of jagged scars across my torso that served as a map of places the world forgot. I was a retired lieutenant colonel, a war veteran in the papers, but just a man who wanted a quiet cup of coffee to me. After 20 years of leading men through hell, I had traded my combat boots for a pair of grease-stained coveralls and a dream I'd held since I was a kid, a 1998 Lamborghini Diablo SV in Monterey Blue. It was my sanctuary, $300,000 of Italian engineering that represented the peace I'd finally earned. The encounter. I was in my driveway buffing a smudge off the rear fender when the clicking of high heels signaled the arrival of the neighborhood's self-appointed queen. Brenda Vane, the president of the Homeowners Association, or as the neighborhood kids called her behind closed doors, the HOA Karen. She stood there with a clipboard hugged to her chest like a shield, her face pinched as if she just smelled something sour. "Mr. Sterling," she clipped, not looking at me but at the car. "We've discussed this. Vehicle maintenance is to be performed inside a closed garage. This loud object is an eyesore and a violation of Code 4.2, Visual Harmony." I didn't stop buffing. "It's not an eyesore, Brenda, it's art, and I'm not changing the oil, I'm dusting it." "It's a distraction," she snapped, her voice rising an octave. "It draws the wrong kind of attention. This is a family neighborhood, not a racetrack. If it's not moved into the garage permanently or removed from the premises, the board will take action. We have standards, Elias, something a man of your background might struggle to grasp." I stood up slowly. I'm 6'3", and though I was smiling, it never reached my eyes. It was the look that used to make insurgents rethink their life choices. "My background involves protecting the freedom that allows you to complain about a car's color, Brenda. Leave the Diablo alone." She turned on her heel, muttering about delinquent elements and property values. The escalation. The following week was a barrage of yellow slips, fines for excessive engine noise. I hadn't started it in 3 days, fines for unauthorized driveway usage. Brenda was a woman possessed. She didn't just want the car gone, she wanted me broken. She saw my silence as weakness, not knowing that in my world the loudest people are usually the first to fold. The conflict reached a boiling point on a Tuesday. I had just returned from a VA appointment when I saw a flatbed tow truck idling in front of my house. Brenda was there, pointing at my Lamborghini with a triumphant smirk. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "It's being impounded," Brenda declared. "Multiple unpaid violations and a report of hazardous fluid leakage. You've ignored the HOA's authority for the last time." "It's on private property," I said, stepping between the tow driver and my car. The driver, a young guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, took one look at my posture and stepped back. "Look, man," the driver whispered. "She showed me a signed abatement order from the HOA board. I'm just doing my job." "The order is a fake, or at least it's unauthorized," I said. "I'm on the board's meeting minutes for next month to appeal. You touch this car and you're liable for every scratch." Brenda let out a shrill laugh. "Oh, please, it's a toy for a man-child. Move aside, Elias, we're cleaning up the street." I didn't move. I called my lawyer, a man who specialized in crushing the uncrushable, and the tow truck eventually left after I threatened a lawsuit that would bankrupt the driver's company. Brenda was livid. Her face turned a shade of purple that almost matched the Lamborghini. "You think you're so tough," she hissed. "You think those medals make you untouchable. This is my neighborhood." The climax, the act of destruction. 2 nights later, the nightmare happened. I woke up at 2:00 a.m. to a sound that sent my adrenaline into overdrive, the sound of shattering glass and the heavy, wet thud of something hitting metal. It wasn't gunfire, but my body reacted as if it were. I was out of bed and at the window in 3 seconds. In the glow of the street lamp, I saw a figure in a heavy trench coat standing over my Lamborghini. They were swinging a heavy garden hoe with frantic, desperate energy. Crack! The windshield spiderwebbed. Thud! The carbon fiber hood buckled. Then the figure produced a gallon jug and began pouring a thick, caustic liquid over the Monterey blue paint. I smelled it through the screen, industrial-grade paint stripper. I didn't yell, I didn't run out screaming. I moved with the cold, calculated precision of a man who had cleared rooms in Fallujah. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and stepped out onto the balcony. The figure looked up. It was Brenda. Her hair was a mess and her eyes were wide with a manic sort of glee. "Now let's see how much your art is worth," she yelled, her voice cracking. She swung the hoe one last time, catching the side mirror and snapping it off. The $300,000 machine was ruined. The paint was already bubbling and peeling under the chemicals. I didn't move toward her, I just looked at the camera lens, then back at her. "Brenda," I said, my voice vibrating with a frequency that made her stop mid-swing. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "I saved the neighborhood," she cried, though the first hint of fear was creeping into her eyes as she realized I wasn't exploding in rage. I was just watching. The aftermath. The police arrived 10 minutes later. Brenda tried to claim she was performing emergency maintenance or that I had baited her, but the 4K video from my balcony and my driveway security cameras told a different story. As they handcuffed her, the gravity of the situation began to dawn on her. This wasn't a neighborhood dispute. This was felony vandalism and a hate crime enhancement because of the verbal harassment regarding my veteran status she'd shouted during the act. But the real destruction of Brenda Vane was just beginning. A week later, I invited the entire HOA board minus Brenda to my home. I sat at the head of my dining table, dressed in my full dress blues. I rarely wore them, they felt heavy with the weight of the men I'd lost. But today, I needed the weight. "Gentlemen, ladies," I began. "Brenda Vane acted on behalf of this association when she harassed me. She used HOA letterhead to attempt an illegal towing, and finally, she destroyed my property." The board members looked at their shoes. The vice president, a timid man named Arthur, cleared his throat. "Elias. We are so sorry, we had no idea she'd gone this far, but surely insurance." "Insurance will cover the car," I intercepted. "But the civil suit I've filed is against Brenda and the HOA for negligence and enabling a hostile environment. The total damages I'm seeking, $5 million. The room went silent. "However," I continued, "I'm a reasonable man. I don't want the neighborhood's money. I want the cancer removed." The resolution. The destruction wasn't just about the car, it was about the power dynamic. Within 48 hours, Brenda Vane was forced to resign from the board, but it didn't stop there. Because she had used her position to facilitate a crime, the HOA's insurance refused to cover her legal fees. She had to sell her house, the crown jewel of Oak Ridge, just to cover the settlement and her defense attorney. I bought her house through a blind trust. A month later, a flatbed arrived at my driveway. It wasn't there to take a car away, it was delivering a brand-new, custom-ordered Lamborghini Revuelto. It was finished in a matte tactical green, a nod to my past, with a small decal on the rear, SFC 2004-2024. As the engine roared to life, a sound like a localized thunderstorm, the neighbors didn't come out to complain. They had seen what happened to Brenda. They had seen the man behind the loud car, the veteran who had spent his life fighting for others and just wanted a piece of the quiet life. I saw Brenda one last time. She was packing the last of her things into a rented U-Haul. She looked aged, her queen of the cul-de-sac persona stripped away to reveal a bitter, lonely woman. I pulled the Revuelto up to the edge of her driveway. I rolled down the window. "Nice day for a move, Brenda," I said. She looked at the car, then at me. "You ruined my life," she whispered. "No," I replied, shifting the car into gear. "You tried to destroy a piece of my peace. I just showed you what happens when you pick a fight with a soldier who has nothing left to lose but is quiet. This neighborhood is in visual harmony now." I tapped the throttle. The roar echoed off the walls of the million-dollar homes, a beautiful, violent symphony. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, the scars on my chest didn't itch. The Diablo was gone, but the lesson remained. In the battle of the HOA Karen versus the war veteran, Brenda had forgotten one thing: you never scout a battlefield without knowing who's entrenched on the other side. I spent the afternoon turning Brenda's old backyard into a community garden for wounded vets. The HOA didn't say a word about the visual harmony. In fact, Arthur even brought over some fertilizer. Peace, I realized, wasn't the absence of noise, it was the presence of respect. And sometimes you have to burn a $300,000 bridge to build a road that finally leads home.